All right, we've got Jay Goldberg here. He watches Ontario for us, and he just published a new column in the National Post about Ontario's fiscal situation. It's a bit grim. Let's just be honest about that. This is not a feel-good fairy tale kind of a column. But here, I'm just going to read a quote right out of Jay's column. Quote: "The Ford government needs to tell taxpayers the hard truth. The budget will never balance itself without some spending restraint. And if the province fails to act now, dealing with Ontario's debt crisis will only get more difficult." Asking politicians to tell people the hard truth, man, that seems like you're taking a tough direction here. But your column puts a fact front and center that governments really don't want to talk about. You throw it out there, a deep, dark number called interest costs. How much does that actually cost the Ontario government right now?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's something that Premier Ford doesn't want Ontarians to know. He's been suggesting in a column in the Toronto Sun that, they're just going to move ahead without cutting spending and without raising taxes. The tax side is a good thing. But what he's not telling Ontarians is that we are spending more than $1 billion a month on debt interest. So that's over $13 billion a year. That's more than we spend on post-secondary education here in Ontario. And with that same amount of money, you could build 13 new hospitals. So, Ford is not wanting to tell Ontarians the truth. It's costing us $1 billion a month, and it's only going to get worse without any plan to balance the budget.
This is weird. We talk so much in big numbers these days. $1 billion here, $1 billion. $1 billion a month. Like, it's just incredible. As you say, that's like building a whole new hospital every month, burning it to the ground, and then building a whole new hospital. That's what it sounds insane to say out loud, but that is the fiscal equivalent of exactly what we're doing. So, okay, so that's the problem. Let's talk about the, I was going to say solution, but I guess a proposed solution would be a more accurate way of saying it. What is Premier Ford's plan to deal with this?
Well, Premier Ford came out in the Toronto Sun and he said that Ontario will get back to balance eventually without raising taxes and without reducing spending. They're relying entirely on economic growth. Their plan, it's an 8-year plan, but it's based on really rosy economic numbers. I think there's no way they're going to meet that. And actually, the parliamentary budget officer is saying that the Ontario governments are not going to balance their books for decades. So I don't think the Premier is being truthful with Ontarians, and they really have no plan to balance the budget. And this $1 billion a month figure, it's only going to get bigger from here. It's not going to get smaller.
Yeah, it's funny, this whole trust economic growth strategy. And listen, let me be really honest. I hope that works. That'd be great if the economy just takes off and all of our problems are solved. But that's like a little bit like spending too much on your credit card and just hoping that you're going to get a raise and you can pay it off. Like, maybe that'll happen, but there's no real no guarantee on that. I want to pull you back to the parliamentary budget officer, though, because this isn't just your opinion and mine or anybody else's. Parliamentary budget officer has taken a pretty close look at provincial plans, including Ontario's plan. What are they seeing there? What are we seeing from the PBO?
Well, what the PBO is saying is that Ontario government, so they're actually looking at the provincial government and municipalities, and I think that's appropriate because the province is ultimately responsible for what cities spend. And if you look at those two levels together, the PBO study goes all the way to 2095. Not 1 year between now and then do they expect Ontario's books to be balanced. So I can't even say, Franco can say at the federal level, you'll have a balanced budget by 2070. I can't even say 2095. That's just when the study ends. But there is no year they're expecting us to run balanced here in Ontario all the way till 2095.
And I think that's a really important thing to think about here. This is, a lot of people will say, well, the pandemic's a tough time. We got to spend money to get through it. Spending money in bad times, you can make an argument for that. But this isn't talking about running deficits in bad times. This is talking about running deficits in all of the times, always. There's never back to normal. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to play the game that politicians have played with me, like to play with us all the time. I'm going to put you on the hot spot. Okay, smart guy. You think government's spending too much money? What would you cut? You think it's so easy? What would you cut?
Well, job number one is corporate welfare. And, the Ford government, they gave a $300 million check just under a year ago to the Ford Motor Company. They're a Fortune 500 company. They're making billions of dollars in profits. And the Ford government decided to give them $300 million just for plant renovations here in Ontario. And there's no way such a profitable business needed taxpayer dollars that badly. And of course, they also gave $55 million to Maple Leaf Foods. That's again a very profitable company. So corporate welfare is the first thing to go after. And even though the Ford government likes to say that they're doing less of it, or they're really trying to roll it back from the win years, that's still a heck of a lot of money. And that's job number one to go after.
Yeah, okay. So corporate welfare, stop giving big checks to big businesses. I think other than those big businesses, you get a lot of people nodding their heads when you hear that one. All right, give me another one. That's not going to do it. What else do you do?
Well, my favorite, of course, is handouts for Ontario's political parties. We're giving $12 million a year to Ontario's political parties. They can spend it on whatever they want, attack ads, lawn signs. It's not for a get out the vote effort. This is for partisan purposes. If you're seeing those new ads on TV, the PCs and the NDP have rolled them out. Turns out you're actually paying for them. And the Ford government's arranged for a $10 million payday advance for political parties before the next election. So definitely second thing that we would like to see gone right away is this subsidy for political parties. And I should also say that this political welfare, Doug Ford promised to scrap it. In the last election, he said we don't need to be giving money to political parties. He was right in the last election. He's not right now, and we need to see that rolled back right away.
Yeah, it's crazy when you watch the progression there. So he promises to get rid of it, says he doesn't need it, then decides to break that promise and keep it, and then goes a step forward and takes an advance on payments that are supposed to be happening after the election. He's taking all of the political parties are just helping themselves to what should be future payments. And here's the thing. It's always sketchy to make predictions in politics, but I'm going to go way on a limb here, Jay. You can tell me if I'm crazy. I think they're going to take that advance, and then they're just going to take the money as well afterwards. Like, that's not going to be an advance. Like, if you take an advance from work, then you don't get your next paycheck or whatever the value of that advance is. They're going to take the advance. They're going to take the money too. Am I wrong here?
You're not wrong. And the payments are calculated based on how many votes you got in the last election. So if they're saying they're not going to take any payments in the first 9 months after the next election, they don't know how many votes each party is going to get. So whatever this advance is before the election is not actually going to match up with what should be happening after the election. So definitely not. They're not going to be paying it back. And I'm sure that's going to be a quick announcement, very quiet on a Friday afternoon, soon after the election, that turns out we're not going to give that back, and we're just going to keep going.
And I would guess that if you weren't watching, nobody would notice. So we're counting on you to catch them when they do that. Pretty predictable. You should be able to get them. Okay. It's interesting. The issues you've brought up are worth millions, actually hundreds of millions of dollars. And it seems weird to say this, but in some ways that's small potatoes. It isn't, because that's a lot of people's tax money. So I don't want to diminish it. But when we look at the scale of the problem, we're into the billions of dollars of problems. You've picked some really good low-hanging fruit, but when we get down to it, what are we going to have to do if Ontario is going to actually get down to business here?
Well, look, half of our budget here in Ontario goes to paying government employees, paying their wages. And what we've seen over the last few years is wage increases for those who work for the government, and job losses for those who don't, or reduced hours, or pay cuts. And so, secondstreet.org put out a study. They haven't seen a pay cut at any level of government in Canada for years. We certainly haven't seen it in Ontario. The Ford government made a start by limiting the growth in wages for government employees, but it's time for a wage freeze, absolutely, cut potentially, because the deficit is so far out of control, and people who are working for the government generally get about 10% more than those who are working in the private sector. And that's just not fair. And if there's a way to balance the budget, that's the first place to start for sure. And that's a lot of money. That'll be billions of dollars in savings.
Okay. So what you're talking about though is, I mean, you're kind of talking about like the Buckley's plan here. It tastes awful. That for sure is the case, right? The only reason people ever take Buckley's is because of the cold they have is even worse than the nasty taste of that cough syrup. So let's talk about the cold here. If we keep ignoring it, if Doug Ford won't take that tough medicine, if he won't tell taxpayers the truth, where does this road lead us?
Well, look, Ontario is the most indebted subnational unit in the world. We're, as we said, are spending more than $1 billion a month on debt interest. That's just going to get further and further out of control. Ford ran as someone who was going to fight for taxpayers, and he needs to, because we saw, for example, in the 1990s, an NDP government, and you don't expect the NDP to want to make cuts. They shut down 52 hospitals in Saskatchewan because they couldn't keep the lights on. And, you know, that's something that's quite scary for a lot of people. And that's something we have to start thinking about in Ontario. Do we want to let the situation get to a place where our government might have to start making decisions about potentially closing hospitals or major cuts to the services that people rely on most? And so, you know, the answer is to make reasonable decisions today, somewhat difficult decisions, but much less difficult decisions than you would otherwise make years from now when we're finally in a crisis. So those decisions need to be made today. And I think Ontarians need to realize that if we don't make those tough decisions, the tough decisions are going to be way, way, way worse.
Yeah, look, it feels a lot like, I don't know, Jay, you were probably really responsible even when you were younger. But some of us, when we first got a credit card, you know, we had fun buying things, but maybe didn't look as closely at the statement as we should have. It doesn't get easier the more you ignore it. It only gets harder. That's what we're seeing with governments too. It's either do the tough stuff now or the much tougher stuff later. All right, Jay, thank you so much for chatting about this. Your op-eds in the National Post, we'll have a link out there for everyone.
Thanks a lot, Todd.
Hi, I'm Scott Hennig, President of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. If you've got another minute, I'd like to ask you to think about the one person you know that would really enjoy listening to this podcast. Do us a favor and do them a favor and send them a quick note to let them know about it. At the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we believe there is power in numbers. That's why we've worked so hard to build an army of taxpayers who are ready to push back. And we did it because people like you shared our work with that one person that they knew would really appreciate taking part. Thanks for listening, and thanks for doing your part to make Canada a better place.